Okay, now we're ready to start with mating, which is the final segment in this course. And when we use the word mating, what we mean is basically a long-term commitment. It could be a marriage, it could be a lifelong partnership, however you think of it. But the idea is that you've decided, I want to be with this person for a long time, hopefully the rest of my life. Now, if you're just starting out and you're new to the mating experience, then the skills that we've been talking about will make it so much easier. Right? But if you've been in a marriage or a mating situation for a long time and you've developed some bad habits and maybe there's a real strain in your partnership, that's a more difficult situation. And we have some suggestions to make about that, but what I'm going to say is first go through the mating portion of the class, and then at the end I'll talk a little bit more about some things that may be helpful. Welcome back to Rheology and the final section of our course. Again, I want to ask you to share your enthusiasm about what you're learning. Please tell other people about this program, but encourage them to buy the program because the material is copyrighted. Thank you. Okay, we are now going to explore part 3 of our course, Dating, Relating, Mating, and this section focuses entirely on mating. As I've said before, even if you are in the mating stage, it's really helpful to listen to the dating and the relating sections in addition to this section of the program. Okay, hopefully you have completed the dating stage and that's behind you. And you've also worked your way through the relating stage, figuring out what your boundaries and agreements are with your partner. And so finally, we get to the mating stage in our romantic relationship. And if we do this well, it can be an incredible relief. A lot of our strife and struggle and questioning is over. So this section of the course explores what I mean by doing this well. How do we do this well? Now, what I'm going to introduce you to in part 3 of this course will help you understand how you go from relating to mating. We're also going to spend some time talking about how you can appreciate your differences, and this is one of the keys to growing your love over a long period of time. We'll talk about how you can stop feeling controlled and stop being controlling, because control really limits the depth of your connection with your partner. I'm going to talk to you about how you can reconnect during the hard times, because from our point of view, there's no need to stay disconnected for more than a few minutes, even when things are difficult. And so I'll talk about this and I'll introduce you to some actual exercises and techniques. In the big picture, we're always talking about how to make our romantic partnership easy. And that applies the most to the mating stage. So I will explore this with you during this section of the course. I will also introduce you to some tools that you can use to improve your relating even further. And one of those is a mindfulness practice, which we call the 4 Directions meditation. Another exercise is one we call turning toward. And then the exercise that I think is, well, they're all important, but I think this is really critical. It's called remove, praise, and blame. I'll go into a lot of detail about how you do this and the importance of doing this. And this will dramatically reduce the amount of conflict that you have in your partnership. And then if conflict does arise, this last exercise will help you break or eliminate the cycle of conflict when it does show up. And so we're going to talk about how to minimize any conflict, but also how to deal with it if it does arise. So let's look a bit more closely at the mating stage. Now that your agreements and your commitments are in place, instead of trying to figure them out, your job is now to honor the commitments that you've made. You may need to add or edit your agreements over the years that you're together, but once they're made, the way to build trust and love is to honor your commitments to one another. Now, as you do so, you're going to allow your intimacy to grow. And from our point of view, this is a continuous process. The longer you honor your commitments, lovingly, not begrudgingly, the more intimacy you experience with your partner. And the idea with captivating each other is this: don't take your partner for granted. Do things to delight and to surprise in positive ways, and to flatter your partner. These things can be incredibly simple. They can be unexpected little gifts, taking a moment to write a special note to your partner. Hen and I both have journals that we write in once a week, and they're in our bedside tables. I write in her journal, and it's just exclusively for this purpose. And she writes in my journal. And we write something meaningful, and we actually never talk about what we write. We never talk about it. But we have a journal. It's written in by our partner, and it's an expression mostly of their love. Not exclusively. Some of our entries are asking questions or challenging in healthy ways. But it's a wonderful little ritual we have, and it's a way that we do captivate each other. Turning toward may be the most important thing that I can convey to you about the mating stage. So many people turn away from their partners in hard times. But this is generally a mistake. The idea is to recognize that you're separate, you're different people, you're not enmeshed. And as separate people, you want to turn toward one another and then maturely express yourselves. This is an absolute key to keeping your romantic relationship healthy. Appreciating your differences takes great maturity. We tend to feel threatened or challenged when our partner sees the world differently than the way that we see the world. But if we learn to really value and appreciate our differences, then our relating becomes much richer and our love becomes much deeper, because we're seeing the other person for who they are, not just for who we want them to be. And this is a very significant way of deepening our connection. We are separate, but we are also together. And the idea, which I mentioned earlier, is that it takes two healthy me's to create a healthy we. And this is best captured by the idea of differentiating. Differentiating is a lifelong process. And what it means is that we continue from birth to death to become more unique, more complex as an individual, and as a result we actually become more resilient. So the more differentiated we are, the more capable we are of adapting and responding in healthy ways. To differentiate is to keep growing, evolving, learning, discovering, and this is one of the secrets to never getting bored with your lifelong partnership. So I'll talk more about this, and this is different than individuating. Individuating is what we were focused on primarily in the relating stage, and now we're talking about something different. We're talking about the continued growth of you as an individual and then bringing yourself fully to your partnership. When we go from relating to mating, the context of our relationship has shifted. The question is no longer, will we be together? That's the question that we've been asking when we're in the relating stage. Now we're going to ask a different question. The question is, how will we be together? This is a distinction that is really worth noticing. our emphasis is on how we will be together as a couple. It's about the quality of our interactions and our personal conduct. And we no longer are wondering and wrestling about our commitment. We've shifted to acknowledging that we're best friends, we're lovers, and that we intend to care for each other. And this is why I believe that when we go to the mating stage, we can relax, we can let love be easy. That's an expression Hannah introduced me to many, many years ago when I was resisting and fighting and basically being immature. And she said to me, let love be easy. And it's something I've learned to do with her support and guidance, and it has made an enormous difference in my life. Okay, I want to take a look at some different scenarios when we talk about mating. And what you'll notice here is that all three scenarios add up to the powerful 36. So mating number one is front-loaded. It's got a lot of juice around chemistry and styles, right? Really high scores in that part of the relating. But notice that for this couple to achieve a 36, they still need to get 2 8s in terms of their values and dreams. Now, by contrast, look at mating scenario number 2, which shows you that even if you have 3 10s, then the one remaining area cannot be lower than a 6 if you want to achieve that 36. So no area can be lower than a 6. And then mating scenario number 3 is just rock solid with a 9 in every category. And of these 3 scenarios, this is probably the one that's the most reliable. But remember the key. The key is to get that 36. And this brings up an interesting question, which is, what if you don't have a 36? So if you're dating, I would say look for another partner. And if you're relating, then I think the question is, are you close to a 36, and is it worth working on? In other words, do you have a reason to believe that you can achieve a 36? If you don't think that's possible, I would suggest that you stop the relating. Now, when you get to the mating stage, then you really need to think about the bigger picture. And this means questions like, how old are you? How long have you been together? What does your financial picture look like? How painful or difficult is it to be together? What options do you have? What price are you paying to be together? Is your health suffering? Now, I believe that people can change when they're sufficiently motivated to do so. So if you're married and you don't have a 36, but you want to, my suggestion is you take 1 year and you make this your top priority, and then you see what happens during that year. Okay, what does the process look like to get from relating to mating? Well, that's just the point. It's a process. You go from lots of relating and a little bit of mating to less and less relating. What I mean by that is less and less working on your agreements, less and less deconstructing your arguments. And you're moving toward more acceptance of your differences, more trust in your partner, more humor in the ways that you connect, and more emphasis on how you treat each other regardless of what you're talking about. That's a really important point, that the emphasis, it doesn't matter what we're talking about. What matters is how we treat one another. Now, I want to suggest to you that relating basically has a lot to do with confronting issues, negotiating, and then experiencing the consequences of whether or not you live up to your agreements. And if you do these things poorly, You're going to experience a lot of anxiety and drama, and there are going to be unresolved issues in your partnership. If you learn to do these things really well, it's a very different experience. You'll develop greater awareness, and you'll clarify your intentions, and you'll come to resolution. And remember earlier I talked about resolve means to untie. So think about the fact that you're going to be untying, uncomplicating a lot of the things that previously were difficult for you. Now, as you shift to mating, this is a very different experience. This is a time when you're witnessing your partner, you're developing greater understanding of both yourself and your partner, and you're honoring your agreements. Now, if you mate poorly, then you're going to end up bored, you're going to feel detached, and there's going to be a lack of passion in your partnership. But if you learn to mate really well, which is part of what this course is all about, then you experience contentment, deep connection with your partner, and much greater intimacy. And there is a cycle to mating. You are likely to go through times of serenity, and if those last for a while, you may begin to get a little bored. And that's when you want to spice things up a little bit. That's when you want to grow more. You want to go deeper. But if you exclusively are trying to go deeper and deeper without any kind of a respite, without any kind of a break, then there's a likelihood that you exhaust yourselves, you tire yourselves out. So we each need to find the rhythm that's right for us, both individually and as a couple. And so I encourage you to think about that. What is the rhythm that's right for you? Okay, what I'd like to do now is look at the frequently asked questions which come up when we teach this course in public workshops. So I just mentioned the possibility that mating can become stale. And this is a sign that you're in a rut, that you're not growing and discovering, that you're not differentiating enough. So it's time to sign up for a workshop or go on an adventure or challenge yourselves in some way. The idea is to expand, to take yourself places that you haven't been before and share that experience with your partner. And we believe this is a big part of what a partnership is, that we think of ourselves as being playmates, and that we're on an adventure in life. And as a result, we actually never get bored, and our mating never becomes stale. So open up to the possibilities and be a little bit adventuresome. To deal with hurts from the past, there are two things I would say. And the first is that you do whatever you need to do to clear up your agreements. So, for example, if you have some issue with an ex-partner, make sure that you create an agreement around that. And agreements never really have to do with the past. They always have to do with the future. They always have to do with how we're going to behave in the present and the future, because we can't change the past. And then the second thing I would suggest is to live in the present. So once you clear up the past, stop revisiting it, because that's not what your life is really about. Now, if you really believe that you picked the wrong partner, we would suggest that you need to resolve or untie your commitment. It's really not fair to stay with someone that you think is the wrong partner for you. So crack this open. Start by talking about it and see how things develop. And you may need to get some help with this. People ask us, how do I get my partner to change? And our answer is very simple. You invite them to. You invite them to. And the way to do this, the best way to do this, is by telling them about yourself. Don't tell them about them. Tell them about you, about your needs, about your fears, about your desires and your hopes, and then see what they do. So when Hannah told me that my flirtatious behavior made her extremely anxious and uncomfortable, then I had a choice. I had information and I had a choice. I could behave in a way that would make my partner anxious and uncomfortable, or I could change my behavior because I really care about how she feels. And after a little bit of negotiating and arguing, because I didn't know better at the time, I ultimately changed my behavior because I realized what was most important was that she be relaxed and comfortable with me. What do we do when we feel stuck? The answer is simple, which is do something really quickly. Right? This is another place that we suggest you should be intolerant. Don't hang out in mediocrity or you'll get used to it. So go get help if you feel stuck. Go get help right away. Basically, for us, if we have more than a couple of bad days, that means we need to go get some help. That's how intolerant we are. We don't do well if we struggle as a couple for more than a day or two. We hear this from time to time. People will say, I don't want to be responsible for how my partner feels. And our answer from a rheology perspective is that you're not responsible for how your partner feels. Now, what I want to do actually is I want to read you a quote from one of our retreat participants. This woman had been a therapist for 26 years. She came to one of our retreats with her husband, and I want to share with you what she said because I think it was really quite profound. Her name is Mary. Mary said, "Various schools of psychology have talked for a long time about taking personal responsibility for one's feelings and for one's life. Yet, when psychotherapy is actually practiced, so much emphasis is placed on the exploration of one's feelings as the path towards freedom from one's conditioning that the client doesn't really learn to take the next step in relationship to feelings. That step is to observe and contain and truly own one's reality as just your own. Our everyday language allows us to continue to project responsibility of our feeling states onto others. He makes me sad, or it angered me. This kind of language keeps us in the passive role. Respeak language, as taught by Jake and Hannah Eagle, offers a communication practice and a life perspective that truly liberates us from the tyranny of taking responsibility for others' feelings and from the burden of staying stuck in our own feelings as well." I'm going to read that sentence again. Respeak offers a communication practice and a life perspective that truly liberates us from the tyranny of taking responsibility for others' feelings and from the burden of staying stuck in our own feelings as well. Jake and Hannah offer a simple and powerfully effective language style woven into a deep understanding of human development that allows us to observe and move through long-standing feelings, making room for joy, play, and love. Now, I encourage you to really think about this. Are you responsible for how your partner feels? People say things like this to us all the time. They say, "Yes, but my partner told me I'm stupid," and wouldn't that make you feel bad if someone told you that? And my response is that even if I did feel bad, it's me who's making me feel bad. I do that to myself. My partner didn't do anything to me. And maybe I wouldn't feel bad if my partner said that. Maybe I'd look at myself and I'd learn something. Maybe I'd ask, why is my partner seeing me in that way? The problem for me would be having a partner who talked to me in that way. I wouldn't find that very acceptable. But the bottom line is that we believe that we are all responsible for how we feel. And so if you don't like how you feel, it's a sign for you to make some changes in your behavior or in the way that you're living your life. This is really worth pondering. I would say it is one of the things that makes Rheology and Respeak so unique, is that we don't spend any time blaming other people for how we feel. and we don't carry on our shoulders the burden of how other people feel. So this is a dramatic difference in terms of our approach to relating with other people. So again, I really encourage you to ponder this, think about it, talk about it with your partner. Okay, I want to move ahead. I want to introduce you to a mindfulness practice that we have designed for the mating stage. And you'll find this in your workbook. There is a lot of text here, and it may be too small and difficult for you to read, but it is in your workbook. And I'm going to walk you through this basic idea. This is called the 4 Directions Meditation. And what's so really cool about this and wonderful is that you get to do the entire thing in about 4 minutes. That's all it takes. So here is how it works. We always start off by facing the south. And the south in this meditation represents possibility. It's sort of like the source of warmth and heat. It's the cauldron of life, which includes chaos and change and all that is unknown. That is what the south represents. And so as you stand and face the south, notice the energy of chaos and commotion that you feel in your own body. And then after about a minute, we're going to turn 90 degrees, a quarter of a turn to the left, and now we're facing the east. And the east represents the rising sun. It's about new beginnings and fresh starts and new moments. And while you're facing the direction of the east, we encourage you to rock from foot to foot, from left foot to right foot. Feel the earth. Sense the warmth or the coolness and hear the sounds. Really embody this experience of facing the east. Take about a minute here, and then we're going to turn 90 degrees, a quarter of a turn to the left, and we're facing the north. Now, the north represents certainty. It's about finding your bearings and knowing what you value. Think that when you're facing the north, you can see the night star, the North Star, which is always in the same place in the night sky. And it represents a constant. So the question is, what are the constants in your life? What is it that you're absolutely certain of? And as you stand facing the north, feel yourself centered and calm, and find your center, and spend about a minute in this position. And then when you're ready, we're going to turn again a quarter of a turn to the left, and now we're facing to the west. And the west is the direction of the setting sun. It's about those people and those things that have gone before us. And the question is, what have you learned from them? What lessons have you learned? And bring these lessons into your body. Feel the wisdom that you've absorbed from all of your life experiences. And spend about a minute facing the west. And then you're going to come back and face the south and notice how you feel. Notice if there's a difference in terms of how you feel now versus when you started. And then I want you to bring the certainty that is from the north, which is now behind you, bring that certainty to that which lies ahead of you. So bring that certainty and see yourself carrying that into your day, into your life. And also bring the wisdom from the west, from those who have gone before you and what you've learned from them. Bring that in the direction of the east, so that as you start your new day, you bring that wisdom with you. Now, I strongly encourage you to do this with your partner. It's a powerful way to align yourself, and it's a wonderful thing to share with your partner. Hannah and I do this just about every morning when we take our walk, and then we share some of our insights and our feelings and our thoughts afterwards. And I also do this just about every night before I go to bed. I go outside under the stars, and I always ground myself and I renew myself with this process. And again, I do this in less than 5 minutes. You will find an audio recording of this on our website. So if you'd like to play that a couple of times, or if you'd like to download that, then you will have both of us, myself and Hannah, guiding you through this process, this 4-minute, 4-direction meditation, which we find to be incredibly powerful and simple. Okay, as we move on, we see our list of mating don'ts. And the first one is, don't help your partner hurt himself or herself. Now, that sounds a little strange maybe, but remember that we don't believe that other people hurt us. We don't say to you that you shouldn't hurt your partner. What we're saying is, don't behave in such a way that your partner will hurt herself or himself with what you're doing. So this is different. This is a little bit of a different twist, but really central again to the whole rheology philosophy. Don't take chances. We really encourage you to turn away from temptations. In general, we believe that relationships have a certain fragility about them. And so we treat our relationship very carefully, as if it's something precious. And we encourage you to do the same thing. Don't let the bad times go unaddressed. Be impatient. I mentioned this earlier. I said, if you're having a problem, address it right away. Go get some help, or do whatever it is you need to do so that you get out of those difficult times. Don't hang out there and allow that to become your norm. Whenever there's tension, don't withdraw. Actually do the opposite. Engage. Go toward your partner. Now, I'm not saying in the heated, in the moment of a heated argument, that may not be exactly the moment you want to turn toward your partner. You may need to walk away for a minute or two. I'm suggesting in the bigger context that you're always engaging and working to resolve things instead of going off and pouting or hibernating or being passive aggressive. And this is an interesting one. This depends a little bit on how old you are, but don't wait too long to plan the latter stages of your life. We see many people who never get around to this, and they end up regretting the fact that they didn't take the time to make a plan for the latter stages of their life. And then finally, don't take your partner for granted. So every day and in every way, we encourage you to remember that what you have is special, and treat each other as if you're special. And don't take what you have for granted. Because if you do, you're going to most likely end up with regrets. When we look at our list of mating do's, the first one is for each of you to stay as healthy as you can. And we're talking about things like exercise and meditating and eating well. People often don't think about this, but staying healthy has a lot to do with creating a great partnership. So we encourage you to make this a priority. It's a way of expressing your commitment to one another. This is a simple one, and people usually smile when they see it. The idea is to get up and greet your partner when he or she comes home. It's very simple. And what we find is that it's extremely meaningful. What we're doing is we're acting as if the other person matters. We're acting as if every time we see each other, it's worth putting some energy out. And as a result, we just, in these little ways, we just keep re-stimulating our love for one another. Spend some time together every day doing something you enjoy. Even if it's a small pleasure, it can be watching a sunset or listening to music or taking a walk. But every day, can you make the time to do something together that makes you feel connected, helps you feel connected? Make your relating a priority. Talked about this a little bit earlier. And along these lines, if there's something in your relating that needs attention, make the time to attend to yourselves. This is a way of showing your love. Don't put off something just because you can, not when it comes to your relating. Treat each other like your best friends. This is, again, it's a simple notion, but we find it to be very profound. We try to be kind and interested in each other. And anytime there's any tension, one of us will remind the other. We'll say, hey, you know, we're best friends. And it just shifts the energy between the two of us immediately. And then the last one is to keep growing individually. This is one of the keys to captivating your partner. And it is one of the keys to differentiating, is that you keep growing and evolving, which makes you more interesting and makes your partnership more interesting. Okay, I want to introduce you to an exercise that is called Turning Toward. And I'm going to give you a visualization that may help you do this. The idea here is extremely powerful, which is to learn to turn toward one another instead of away from one another, particularly when things are difficult. And this is counterintuitive. Usually when people have a hard time, they push away. What we're encouraging you to do here is to face one another. Once we're in a committed partnership with someone, there are certain things that we know to be true. Hopefully, otherwise we probably shouldn't be together. Hopefully this person is our friend, they're on our side, they love us, and we love them. Now, we may forget these things in moments of insecurity or times of trouble, but we need to remind ourselves that this is actually the context of our partnership. This is the container of our partnership. So here's what happens when if we feel insecure or hurt, or we experience some conflict with our partner, then a little something falls out of the sky. And that's the yellow dot that you're looking at right now. And the thing to remember about that little dot, that little thing that fell out of the sky, is that fear and pain, they're both temporary states. And that's what that little dot represents. It's a temporary state. What we want to do is remind ourselves and our partner that the context of our relationship is one of love. That's the big container. And so the skill that we want to learn is turning toward our partner and reminding them that we love them, they're our friend, we want to be with them. And we can do this by asking our partner, what can we do right now to reconnect? So there's been some little blip on the radar screen, some way in which we've scared ourselves. And as quickly as possible, if we remember the larger context, we're friends, we're lovers. The question is, what can we do right now to reconnect? And if one of you remembers to ask this question, you can empower yourselves and you can shift your dynamic very, very quickly. And this is probably one of the simpler but more powerful tools that Hannah and I have used in the last 20 years. I encourage you to practice this. The next exercise I want to introduce you to is called Remove, Praise, and Blame. And one of the most powerful communication skills that we can share with you is this idea, because it will radically minimize the conflict that comes up in your relating. Simply put, praise and blame are both ways that we control other people. We control them by making them feel good or making them feel bad. But neither of these is fundamentally part of the rheology orientation. We don't believe that other people control us, and we don't believe we should control other people. Certainly not when we're talking about adult relationships. So both praise and blame are going to foster dependency. They don't foster love. And what I'm talking about here is one of the key aspects of Respeak. Respeak is made up of 6 different language rules, and one of those rules is to remove praise and blame. Now, giving up praise and blame does not mean that you cannot express disappointment or appreciation. You can do both, and I'm going to share with you how you do that right now. So instead of praise, when you want to acknowledge something positive, start your sentence with, I appreciate blank, right? So I appreciate you for listening to this course. I appreciate you for practicing the skills that I'm introducing you to. I appreciate you for your desire to become a healthier person. Now, when I say these things, I'm really telling you about myself. I'm telling you about the things that I value and the way that I see the world. I'm not telling you who you are. And that's the difference. Instead of telling you about you, I'm telling you about me when I start a sentence with I appreciate. Instead of using blame, if I want to acknowledge something negative, then I'm going to start my sentence with I disappoint myself. And again, notice that I'm talking about me, I'm not talking about you. So I disappoint myself when you tell me you're going to do something and then you don't do it. I disappoint myself when you don't spend more time with me when we're home. I'm giving you information about me. You see, I'm giving you information about me without telling you about you. Therefore, you're less likely to get defensive, and I'm more likely to get my needs met. So the point is to talk about yourself. Don't tell the other person about him or her. Doing so only leads to either defensiveness or dependency. And in your workbook, you're going to find a place where you can practice translating. You'll be able to translate praise into appreciation and blame into disappointment. And I encourage you to do that in writing several times, and then start doing this more and more with your partner. And make this just a standard part of how you communicate with one another. And if you do, you'll dramatically change the quality of your relationship, the way that you relate. Okay, so I've talked about removing praise and blame, and I've said that if you do that, you're going to have a lot less conflict in your relationship. But the question arises, what do we do when there is conflict? And that's what this exercise that I'm going to walk you through now is designed to help you with. So this is a very powerful conflict resolution model. It was originally developed by one of our mentors. His name is Nelson Zink. And if you take the time to get good at this, you're going to pretty much eliminate most conflict probably within 2 or 3 minutes of when it first shows up. Now, the model that I'm going to introduce you to suggests that all speech and behavior can be divided into 4 groups. And here's what they are. There is the group of attacking and abandoning. And then there is the group of seeking information and giving information. Okay? Now, attacking is when I make demands for some kind of action. Attacking is making demands for some kind of action. Abandoning is breaking off the exchange with the other person entirely. It's walking away. Giving information is expressing one's own experience, not telling the other person about them. And seeking information is attempting to understand the other person's experience. Now, The problem with both attacking and abandoning is that these behaviors stimulate our sympathetic nervous system. In other words, we're going to experience a release of adrenaline, we're going to experience more tension, and this increases the likelihood for more conflict. And so the answer is to give information when you perceive abandonment. And you can think of this as reassurance. You're reassuring the person who is abandoning, right? Somebody's walking away from you, and what you're going to do is you're going to give them information. And I'll show you how you do this in a minute. You're going to give them information about you, not about them. The other side of the equation is that you want to seek information when you perceive somebody is attacking you. And so this is a request, right? I'm seeking information. And anytime somebody attacks and comes at me aggressively, my instinct is not to request. My instinct is to push them away. So this is going to be counterintuitive. It's not going to feel natural when you do this, so you're going to have to practice if you want to get good at this. The best way to learn this model is actually to do some practice, some role playing with your partner. So one person will attack, and the other person's job is to seek information and say things like, can you tell me why you're upset? Can you tell me why you're upset? Okay, I'm seeking information. Is there anything I can do to help you? Are you upset with me? I'm seeking information. Do you want to talk about this? I'm seeking information. As I seek information with the person who is attacking, they will calm down. I may need to do this 3 or 4 times in a row, but the other person, 99% of the time, the other person will calm down because all they want is to feel understood. And as you ask these questions, you're attempting to understand them. Very powerful. And the best way to learn this again is to role play. Don't do it in real life situations at first because your instincts will take over. Now, if the other person is abandoning, then you want to give them information, but the information you're giving is about yourself. You don't tell them about them. You say things like, the other person's walking away from you, right? You say things like, I don't want you to leave. I want to connect with you and I want to talk about this. It's important to me that we find a way to resolve this. Now again, if you do this 3 or 4 times when another person is pulling away from you, 99% of the time they're going to stop and they will turn toward you. And here's the tricky part, is that people will switch between attack and abandon, and you need to recognize what's going on. If you give information when someone is attacking, things will escalate. And if you seek information when someone is abandoning you, they will just continue to abandon and they may even walk away faster. So again, you have to practice this and notice that your instinctive response is going to be the opposite of what I'm suggesting that you should do. So this requires real discipline and self-regulation, but that's a key to developing mature romantic partnerships. And so this is one of the most powerful tools I've been exposed to in the past 25 years. It's worth getting really good at this. And it's actually fun. I mean, if you do it as a practice round, it can be a lot of fun. If you do this, if you learn to go from attacking and abandoning to giving information and seeking information, so you're moving from the top 2 boxes to the bottom 2 boxes, what happens is that eventually your communication is just one of giving and seeking information. This becomes a really healthy communication pattern, and it is the reason why it's worth getting good at this exercise. This exercise you will find in your workbook, and you can be looking at this diagram while you practice with your partner. Okay, I want to summarize where we're at. As we talked about, when mating, always treat each other kindly. You have decided to be together. You have decided you are a couple. So treat each other well. When you make a mistake, go back and redo yourself as soon as possible. Get really good at this. Get really good at this. Have a redo be just as natural as anything. And don't hesitate to go back and say, I want to redo myself. And this will eliminate a lot of tension and stuckness. Remember, there are two ways to express every thought and every emotion. You can express yourself maturely or immaturely. So the idea is to ask yourself, what would be a mature expression of my thoughts and feelings? And in times of tension, take a step back, but then after you take a couple breaths, turn toward one another. And remember that yes, you're separate and you're different, but you're partners. You're in this together. And then finally, get help if you need it. Don't wait. Don't wait until things get really bad. As we look back at the course you've taken the time to go through, the key thing here is going to be that you use the tools that you've learned. So the three-stage model helps you set appropriate expectations. So ask yourselves, where are we in our relationship and what are the appropriate expectations? And the mindfulness practices are a great way for you to stay connected and centered. And then doing the exercises represents your commitment to your partnership. Now, as a reminder, the mindfulness practices include the eye gazing, seeing through your partner's eyes, and the 4 directions meditation. The exercises include don't complain, ask for what you want. The re-speak technique, which is called resource your feelings. And this is the way you speak, where instead of saying things like, you make me unhappy or you make me happy, I would say, I make myself happy. Another exercise was making agreements. Another one is turning towards your partner and reminding them that you're friends and asking, how can we reconnect? Another aspect of re-speak that I introduced you to was remove praise and blame. And then I taught the conflict resolution model, which invites you to seek and give information to reduce the tension whenever there's conflict. And of course, don't forget the redo. The redo is another part of re-speak that it isn't specifically a language technique. It's more of an attitude that you can go back and redo yourself at any point in time. Now, sometimes I talk about all of this as a practice, but when we think of a practice, we think of something that we do for 20 minutes a day or for an hour a day. So recently I've started to say, actually, this isn't a practice, it's a way of life. And if we do these things all the time, if we use re-speak and we follow the basic guidelines outlined in this course, we will change the quality of our lives and the ways in which we relate to other people and to ourselves. And so I really hope that you choose to do that. It's a gift that you can give to yourself. If you're serious about creating a healthy romantic partnership, we invite you to come to one of our residential retreats. You can come to these programs as an individual because you desire to create a healthy partnership, or you can come with your partner. And nothing has made a bigger difference in our romantic relationship than learning rheology and re-speak. We learned this stuff, we stopped fighting, our relating became easy, and our mating became our sustenance. It became just an incredibly nourishing part of our lives. If you're wondering about the next steps for you, I'll make a few suggestions. You can order my book, which is called Rewrite Your Life, and it goes through in more detail what rheology is all about and how to use re-speak. You can read our blogs and articles, which are on our website, and we now have 2 great booklets which are available. One of them is called Why Wait to Be Happy, and this examines the 3 main reasons why people struggle and what we can do to resolve them. And then our newest booklet is called Finding Yourself, a Love Story. This is a booklet which was written by a participant who went to one of our retreats, and she wrote about the experience. And it's quite beautiful. It's quite funny. I think it's just a really delightful story. You can contact us for counseling and coaching if you want help using the skills that we've talked about in this course. But really, if you want to get this stuff into your bones, if you want to immerse yourself, the way to do that is go to a week-long retreat. There is nothing quite like it from our point of view. I can't explain how powerful the programs are. That's one of my challenges, is how do I convey that to people with words. It's an experience, and it's an experience that lasts anywhere from 6 to 8 days, so it's a very deep experience, and you're part of a community. And I know of no other way to get the full benefit of this work other than going to a retreat. So if that's something you can do, I really encourage you to do so. And in my opinion, I would say that going to a week-long retreat probably generates more growth and development than going to therapy for a whole year, and probably costs less. It depends a little bit where the retreat is. Okay, I want to thank you. I really appreciate your time and attention. I'm glad that you went through this program, and if you have any questions, please contact us. You can reach me at jake@rheology.org. You can reach Hannah@rheology.org. We're both available, and we will personally respond to any emails that you send to us. Okay, thanks again. Bye-bye. Okay, hopefully you've completed the dating, the relating, and the mating segments of the class. And we hope that you found it incredibly helpful. This is, as I said earlier, this has just made a huge difference in my life with Hannah. And I mentioned earlier that if you've been in a long-term relationship and you've been struggling, one of the things that we want to suggest to you is that you consider coming to one of our, we call them a lab. Lab means laboratory. So it's really a retreat. It's a week-long retreat. And if you find the things in this course have been helpful, I think that you'll find that going to a week-long retreat is really a significant step up in terms of A, making a commitment to improve your relationship, and B, really learning these new skills. There's only so much that we can communicate through a video course, but when you immerse yourself in this paradigm, in this work, in this practice for a week, particularly if you can come with your partner, it's a life-changing event. And we see a lot of couples who will kind of chip away at their relationship. They work at it, they work at it, they work at it. And what happens is they exhaust themselves. They become really tired. And so our belief is that's not the best strategy. Our belief is that it's necessary sometimes to do something radical, to really step into a new way of being. And that's what these labs are. And if you come to the lab, what I think you'll find is that you develop more insight, more growth, more change than would occur if you were to do a year or more of therapy. It's a unique experience. I wish I could convey it to you now, but it's an experience. And so I hope it's one that you'll consider. If you have questions about it, please feel free to call, email, whatever is easiest for you. I'm available, and so is Hannah. We're happy to talk with you about this work, which is really our passion. And thank you for participating in this course, and we hope to see you sometime at one of our retreats.